Hey, welcome everyone to today's training on EOS. If you haven't heard of EOS, boy, this is going to be a great webinar. And if you have heard of it, if you're not using it, I think you're going to get tons of value out of this. There's a lot of reasons why I'm excited about this topic. And I have to admit to something. For many years, I'm a little bit embarrassed to tell you this, but for many years, I believed that if I could do an amazing job of generating leads and giving our clients an amazing return on investment for their advertising spend, that we can help them create generational wealth, that they can hire more sales reps, sell more jobs, increase their backlog, and make lots and lots of money. And it's worked for several people. But for several others, they haven't had the tools and the structure and the ability to scale and to grow their company. And that's a big challenge. We all know that 90% of new businesses go out of business within the first 5 years. And I think one of the biggest challenges is growing and scaling and creating those systems that are reproducible so that you can expand. And we've all heard the saying of working in your business versus working on your business. And too many owners, too many small companies, the owner gets stuck in working in their business, and it makes it too difficult to scale. So EOS is all about growing and scaling your business. So there's great tools here. There's great nuggets of wisdom that I have been able to incorporate in my own business, and many of my other colleagues use EOS, and we share notes and we share our struggles. And it's been really impactful in so many different ways to empower our teams to scale, to improve our systems, to improve quality control, to give us more peace of mind. So in light of that, with any good teaching in today's world, we're very distracted. We're getting messages and trying to do things at the same time. So if you could tune those notifications down and focus in, that's going to be great. Some of the things we're going to cover today are the basics of EOS, accountability and ownership, which as owners, we all want more of that to happen. Some really important tools, scorecards and rocks. I can explain that and how to use them. The importance of that one weekly meeting that really shouldn't be missed, and then how this all works together to scale and grow. All right, I've already just covered like the importance of this stuff and shutting down notifications. Brief background of myself. I own Rainmaker for Contractors. We do digital marketing for basement waterproofing and foundation repair folks. We have won several awards from Google, and I am a coach. I coach 25 to 30 digital marketing agencies. I've written a book on digital marketing and basement waterproofing. I host a podcast, Rainmaker for Contractors. By the way, if you own a basement waterproofing company, if you do over $1 million a year, if you have a 4.0 Google rating, I'd love to interview you. You'd probably be a really good guest, and I'm sure you'd have some unique content to share that others would benefit from. And then the Basement Health Association, I've been on the board for 14 years, two-time former president. Been in the industry for, I think, 28 years now. All right, let's jump into EOS. I got to tell you something. I've sat through several EOS presentations, like the A to Z type stuff. Got to tell you, it's a little bit boring. It hasn't always grabbed my attention. I want to be a little bit different, and I just want to focus in on some really good tools that I think could help your basement waterproofing company. That's where we're going to go. What does EOS stand for? Entrepreneurial Operating System. That's EOS. What is it? It's a complete set of timeless concepts, proven practical tools that really work, and it's going to help you get more from your business. It's what every owner wants. All right, so the EOS model, there's 6 main concepts, and I'm going to briefly touch on about, 3 of them, and I'm going to go into a little bit more depth on some others, the ones that I think are really going to help you, that you're going to benefit from. But big company or small company, EOS has some great tools that you can benefit from. Technically, EOS is designed for companies between the size of 10 and 100 employees. But I've seen it work for companies that are smaller than that. So in case you're at a company, you're real small, maybe you have 5 to 10 employees, there's some great tools here. There's some great concepts here that you can benefit from. And it's good to lay the foundation early because as you grow, those systems will be in place and you'll be able to benefit from it. Okay, so here's like the 6 big concepts of EOS. It's vision, people, data, issues, the processes of your company, what you're doing, and then all those work to help you get traction. And what is traction? Traction is pushing your company forward, implementing systems that work, having the right people. I'm going to touch on some of these. So vision is something that takes a little bit of time in the beginning. You have to answer some questions like, hey, what are your goals in the next year or the next 5 years? What are some numerical goals that you think you could hit? But once those are in place, you don't need to put as much work into that. You might refer to them. Your data and your scorecards, things that are measurable, these are things that you're going to touch on every week. Like, how are we doing every single day to get to where we're going? And it's part of this is reporting and part of this is accountability. Processes, you continue to improve your processes and make sure everybody's following them. Rocks, scorecard and rocks, I'm really going to unpack here a little bit. I'll show you some really good examples. But a rock is basically what's the priority for the next quarter. And then people on your leadership team will have their own rocks that they're working on so that in 90 days, they're going to accomplish that rock. And then issues, I think, boy, there's one of the biggest issues of, I talk to owners all the time, and there's this thing they struggle with in letting go. And I hear this expression like, I'm just afraid that quality is going to go down if I give that up. I feel like no one can do it as well as I can. And they're a little bit afraid to hire, to delegate, to let that baby go because they're really good at what they do. And it's hard to empower someone else to do that. And in the issues item and this thing called the IDS, identify, discuss, and solve, that's where you're really empowering not only an individual, but an entire team to help identify what the issues are in your company and discuss it, and then come to an agreement as a group to solve that issue and as a group to go forward to help you get traction. That's really powerful for an owner to have their leadership team like help identify issues and then take ownership and to help your company grow. And it's really powerful when you see that. And people, we've heard this from Jim Collins, you need the right people in the right seats. One of the giveaways to this training here is I'm going to give you a tool called the People Analyzer. It's a very brief way to check in once a quarter with your employees to make sure that their actions, their behavior, and who they are is lining up with the company's core values. So big picture, that's what EOS is and some of the 6 important components of it. So I just unpacked some of those same things. Here's another expression, as I've seen many companies move from not using EOS to using EOS, they use this expression often. They said, I feel like I was running the business with the lights turned off. And with EOS, someone turned the lights on and there's visibility as far as what's happening and where we're heading. Whether someone says, I felt like I was driving with no lights on and the sun rose and I was able to use lights and see where I was going. That's what I hear all the time. And that's really powerful for you and your business that EOS provides. So I always want to be practical and specific and avoid theory and ideas. It's all about taking action and so on. So I wanted to show you like real specifically what this could look like for your basement waterproofing company if you're not using this type of a management model and the various tools that come with EOS. It, like I mentioned before, it provides clarity, Do you want a culture of accountability? Yes, absolutely. And it shouldn't be just you running around holding people accountable. You create a whole company culture of people that hold each other accountable. That's really powerful. Better communication, a systematic way for your leaders, for the key people in your company to solve issues and provide that framework. So I told you I'm not going to give you a big boring thing. I just want to touch on three, I think, really effective and important tools. The first one is level 10. We call it the L10 meeting. It's a meeting that we really don't want anyone to miss. When in a perfect world, what I've seen happen with people that have really incorporated EOS, the owner becomes separate from the business and they have the leadership team working on the business, but the owner will come into the weekly meetings to really get an overview, not only of what's happening on a day-to-day basis, but also where the leadership team is taking the company. And ideally that level 10 meeting is not led by the owner. It's led by someone else on the leadership team. So it's a weekly meeting that happens every week. I'm going to unpack in a second. Then we have scorecards. That's one of the components inside the weekly meeting, and then rocks. There's other cool tools for sure, which I'll briefly touch on, but these are the three I'm going to unpack. All right, level 10 meeting, super important. Here's the format of a level 10 meeting. We start with good news. All the brain science says when you start a meeting with something positive, and it's going to make a better meeting. For these meetings, we start with, hey, share one thing, one personal win that's going on and a company win. And everyone says something very briefly. It's not like time for a long story. And then we even document that. And I'm actually creating like a wins journal so we can look back at all the wins that we have. So that's only 5 minutes. By the way, this says 90-minute meeting. A lot of companies will do this in 60. We do it in 60. Sometimes companies do 90. We could do this in 60 minutes. So 5 minutes to check in, start something positive. I will unpack that, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. And same with rocks. I'll touch on that in a second. People headlines, if there's some like company-wide, something that someone needs to know about, that's where that happens. And then a to-do list, that's where some accountability is coming in. Hey, Ron, you were supposed to follow up on such and such. Did that happen? Yes or no? Sue, you're supposed to do this. Did that get done? And that's it. These are good reminders. And EOS is so big that there's tools that support the model. So software can send notifications to say, hey, this was on the to-do list. This is a reminder, and then it automatically gets kicked out. IDS, I am not going to unpack this except for right here and right now. Now, I did mention this earlier. As you could see, the majority of this meeting is IDS, where it's identify, discuss, and solve. Now, as someone who has owned a few companies and has been in that space for a long time, I've been a firm believer that people on the front lines have access and visibility to issues that I don't, because I'm typically not on the very front lines. I like to go there sometimes, but I don't live there because I'm managing and leading the company. And so I love when I have employees that are able to identify issues or ways to improve the company, and they bring those issues to the leadership and they say, hey, I've been noticing this, and I'm wondering if we could do it differently. There might be a way to improve how we, whatever it is, serve our customers, improve the quality, create more leads, whatever it is. Love those ideas. All owners love it when that happens. It's a beautiful thing. So what happens in this section of the meeting is the leader of the meeting will say, hey, does anyone have anything they want to IDS? And you come up with a list of items that the leadership team brings. I want to talk about this. Great. I want to talk about that. Great. Come up with a list, a few things. Okay. What do we think the priority is? And then you start there and you identify, discuss, and solve, and you end that with someone taking ownership. You know what it looks like, and there's a due date. And then you're writing that down, and you're through organizing and through writing it down and having dates and people owning it. You're able to make traction And there's also a very powerful social dynamic where your employees feel empowered to help your company grow. And everyone wants to feel important. Everyone wants to feel like their contribution every day is making a difference. That's very different than people just going through the motions, looking at the clock, waiting to get the hell out of the company because they're bored out of their mind. With IDS, it really empowers people to make a difference, and everyone wants to feel like they're making a difference with their lives. Everyone wants to work at a company where there's energy, where there's excitement, where you feel like you're progressing, and IDS helps that happen. It encourages that culture. Real briefly at the end, the close, I think it's super powerful. On a scale of 1 to 10, we go around and rate the meeting. If it's 10 is good. So if there's a lot of contribution, if we solved several things, that's going to be a 10. If a lot of people didn't participate, it was low energy, there wasn't much to IDS, people aren't hitting their goals for their scorecard and rocks, that's going to be lousy. So a lot of meetings get like 8. Oh, I'll give it an 8. If someone says 10, and I'm the leader of that meeting, I'm going to say, hey, great, you gave it a 10. What did we do? That was good. Oh, I love that we solved a lot of things. And I love the energy of the meeting. Great. If someone says 6 or something, or 7, I'll say, hey, what could we have done differently? And then they'll tell us, they'll say, we didn't solve much. We got lost on one issue and we talked about it forever and there's still 4 more issues. Okay, noted, appreciate the feedback. So you create that environment so that everyone is given feedback so we could have better meetings. So that's the format of an L10 meeting. And that happens every week, no matter what. And if you're thinking about incorporating this, I'm going to guess that this will be one of the challenges of, man, when can we meet? But once you figure that out, there will be a rhythm to your weekly schedule and everyone will work around that and you'll realize how important this meeting is. All right, so now I'm going to unpack 2 of those things where, if I go back a second, I'm going to hit on scorecards, which, wow, you're only spending 5 minutes here and you're saying that's important. It is, it really is. I think you'll like it. And then rocks. Those are the only 2 things that I'm going to touch on for the remainder here. Now, scorecards. So what on earth is a scorecard? A scorecard is what you want to have happen is the people on your leadership team, you're going to identify some categories that are important that you want reporting to have happen each week. And for example, this chart that I have, Sue, I'm calling her the scheduler. And I've identified about 5 things that she influences or is responsible for. And I want to have happen in this weekly meeting. I want to know what's going on. And so here's the goals. Sue's job is to get 55 leads booked. And every week I want to see 50 leads on the schedule. Now, if you're bigger, great. Maybe that's going to be 100 or 200, whatever. If you're smaller, you're thinking, I would love to have 50 leads on the schedule for a week. Whatever it is, this is just my sample. 50 leads, and then SIP percentage, that is the number of times that the rep goes out and they actually do a full demonstration or sales pitch to a homeowner. It's 85%. And then for this model company, we need to see 4 sales a week. And this last one, because sometimes leads sit around and they're very valuable, leads to reschedule. Not all leads get booked for various reasons. People call and they say, hey, I can't be there. So now you have a reschedule. There's leads to reschedule. So we want that 10 or less. So every week we go around, and as you remember, the scorecard section, it's only 5 minutes. So we're going to touch on, hey, Sue, can you walk us through? Yep. So this is, let's say July 24th. This would have been a day or 2 ago. Leads booked. Last week I booked 50 leads, 5 short of my goal. I confirmed 50 leads, hit my goal. SIP percentage was 90, doing awesome. Had 3 sales, just 1 short, and I have 12 leads to reschedule. Boom, they're done. Now we have, if you use Google Sheets, they hit the goal. We just do the formula. It's green. Red is didn't hit the goal. So visually you could see about half of this is green and half of it is red. And then as the owner, I put myself here. I'm saying I'm the sales manager. And I have a tendency to not run leads because I get stuck in the company playing fireman. But my goal is to run 5 leads because I need to get out in the field. I'm good at sales. And if I'm in the field running 5 leads a week, I'm going to sell. And so I'm accountable to the team. And that's my number there. Now, I'm also the sales manager as the owner in this model, and we need 40,000 a week. And so I'm accountable to, oh, I see this should have been red, but I'm accountable to the team. These two should be red. And I'm short of the goal on 2 of the weeks, but 2 of the weeks I hit the goal. And then shows scheduled. I am expanding our lead flow generation efforts. And so I want to be able to have an event or a show scheduled every other week. So I'm accountable to the team to let them know how I'm doing. All right. I put a production manager in here. So I have 5 key stats: dollars installed, feet per man hour. If there's any outstanding payments as an owner, I want to know about it. I want to know how far out we're scheduled with the backlog. And I want the production manager to be responsible to get 1 review a week. And I like the production manager or the foreman to be asking at the end of the job. And so this whole section takes 5 minutes to go through. And that's what a scorecard is. It's what are we doing today to manage our business? We can't just be always working on the future. Scorecards are a great way to get a quick summary of what the heck's going on in your business. Okay, last one I'm going to unpack are rocks. Hopefully you're staying with me. Now, rocks are where we're headed. It's the future. So a rock is what's the most important thing that needs to happen in the next 90 days. Now, hopefully that's aligned with the vision of the company. These rocks should be aligned with where you're headed. I mentioned earlier on when you start to incorporate it, EOS, you have to figure out your vision. What are your core values? Where are you headed? What do you want to do in 90 days, in a year, in 5 years? And so each department is going to have some rocks, some projects to work on over the next 90 days. So again, in the spirit of being practical for basin waterproofing, I came up with some potential rocks. Now, again, scorecards, rocks, it's going to look different for every company. You're going to have things that are important to you and your business that might look different, of course. Sue has 2 rocks for the 3rd quarter. Implement 3 ways to automate lead scheduling. And these options are progress, some progress, no progress, or complete. Those are the options. So if she did some work on it, she's going to get some progress. And with rocks, it's okay. Like, you don't have to make progress every single week. If you go a couple weeks without doing anything, I might check in to make sure there's some progress that's going to happen so that we don't go 3 weeks without any progress. Now, another thing about a rock, the most common mistake, and it happens all the time, like when you first implement EOS, you just need to say, we're going to learn in the 1st quarter. And at the end of the 1st quarter, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking with these rocks? Either they're going to be too small, which the rock could have been done in 2 hours, or they're going to be too big, which that was asking too much from that person on the leadership team to do in a quarter on top of their existing job. Or it's not going to be well-defined. You really need to have a rock that's well-defined so that at the end of 90 days, you could say, yes, it was done. We had clarity as to what that rock was, and now it's complete. For this first one, implement 3 ways to automate lead scheduling. That would need to be more specific. And on the tab below on the Google Sheet, you should be able to click it and it would say Sue's 3rd quarter rock, and it should be agreed upon. So that one is going to say, I want chat available on the website. Great. I want to be able to text customers to reschedule appointments. And then the 3rd one might be, we want an online calendar on our website so that people can schedule leads by themselves. And at the end of the 3rd quarter, if those 3 things are up and running and implemented, then the rock is complete. Now, here's another rock for Sue: document all the scripts. What does that mean? Well, you should have a list of specific scripts. Hey, we're getting an estimate call. What questions get asked? How do you answer the phone? What questions get asked? How do you schedule that? How do you deal with someone? Every company is different. Do you want both homeowners to be there? Yes. Of course, the answer is yes. But then how do you go about dealing with it? That script should be written out. How do you deal with a cancel if someone calls to cancel it? How do you deal with an Angie lead? Would you talk differently to an Angie lead? Is there like a different open or something? Whatever scripts that happen in regards to the scheduling department, they should be documented. So you need a list of those so that at the end of 90 days, there's clarity. Cool. There was 5 scripts and we have all 5. That is a great way to get traction. Now, these 90 days go fast, like life cruises by. So at the end of a year, when you have all these rocks completed, you make amazing traction with your company. You have these systems in place because Sue does scheduling. We don't know how long Sue is going to be your scheduler for. And if she ever leaves for whatever reason, you're going to have these scripts. It's going to be a whole lot easier to train someone else. So I have myself here, I'm going to hire and train a new sales rep, and I'm going to get a truck and all the equipment necessary to add a crew. And then Mike here, production manager, he is going to train and develop an additional foreman. And it should be documented again. What does that look like? Maybe they need to run 3 jobs on their own and the existing foreman shadows them before the end of the quarter. That would be more of a specific goal. And then Mike's been struggling with meetings and having them. And the goal is 13 Monday morning meetings. But to support that, I want the agenda on Friday afternoon. I want to know what he's going to talk about so that he's prepared, so he doesn't show up Monday and be like, oh my gosh, or think about it all Sunday night. Oh, I got to do this meeting. I don't even know what I'm going to talk about. That would be the goal. Now you might say, oh, that almost sounds like a scorecard because you could just say I did it or didn't do it. But because it's such a big priority and because it's a cultural shift and habits are hard to form, we're putting that as a rock. So what I covered here is the level 10 meeting, scorecards, and rocks. There's a whole bunch of other stuff, but I didn't want to overwhelm you. I tried to design this teaching time for kind of the beginner. There is a book that covers all this stuff. There's actually several traction books, but this is the main book that talks about traction. There's different angles to different views of this whole EOS thing. I want to give away a couple tools. This first one is called the People Analyzer. What the People Analyzer does is it's a brief way to check in with your employees to make sure that they understand what your core values are and that they're in line with them. And then it's a tool to have a discussion with employees. In this particular example, the core values of the company are on the top: humbly confident, grow or die, help first, do the right thing, and do what you say. Sally Jones is the first employee, and she is going to get a plus, which means she's in line with the core values, a plus minus, which means sometimes she isn't, and then a minus means she's off. You're not seeing it. So Sally is a stellar employee. She gets pluses on all these core values. John Smith, he's so-so. And then George is not cutting it. Maybe George is too confident or too humble or says he's going to do something but doesn't follow through. So he gets minus. Now, George here, we talked about having the right people in the right seats. George, if you have 5 minuses, it's time to move on. But you should never let an employee get here. In fact, you should be hiring based on your core values. You should ask these interviewees to give you examples of times that they have reflected this core value in previous jobs. Is it a guarantee? No, it's not a guarantee that they're going to totally fit, but it's a way to get closer to that. What I like about this, it's designed to do once a quarter. It's just a tool, and it's important to have that feedback because, again, sometimes time just flies by and you're like, man, I really haven't sat down with these key employees to have a discussion about how they're doing, how their job is going, and how they're fitting in a long time. And if you set this up once a quarter, it could be a 10-minute conversation, and it could also open the door for a lot of other things. important things to come up. So I'm happy to pass that tool along. And this second and last tool we're going to pass along is called the Vision Tracker. What the Vision Tracker does is it gives you 8 questions and it just really helps clarify your vision. It looks like this. What are your core values? And what is your core focus? Like, why do you exist? What's your purpose? What is your 10-year goal? What is your marketing strategy? How are you unique? What's your guarantee? What's your 3-year picture? Boy, if you could write these things down, that really can bring clarity to your company. So that's a second tool that I'm going to pass along. Lastly, I would say, as you may or may not know, we do internet marketing and we help basement waterproofing companies and foundation repair companies get leads. And our goal is to provide an amazing return on investment. We're very passionate about what we do. We love helping people. If you are interested in an analysis of how you're doing and what opportunities you have to grow, whether that's indirectly with local SEO, but the many other different facets of generating leads online, let us know. That's free at no cost to you. And if you have any questions, please reach out. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you got some good value out of this. If you want to read more, go to the book Traction. There's tons of resources within that, and there's many other books out there.